Alright, welcome back to the channel. The theme of today's video is all about how to program your accessories to make the most of them. And also a big part of it is how to program them in a way where your clients just stop skipping them at the end of the workout, or they just stop phoning them in, because I would say that this is one of the most common gripes for a lot of coaches. Like clients, number one, they either just straight up skip their accessories, or they're just a little bit out to lunch when they're doing them. So talk about some strategies that you can use to overcome that, as well as a couple of tips when it comes to exercise selection for accessories, and a few of my other thoughts on that area. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's video, I just want to thank everyone for the support I've been getting recently on the channel. The idea that I can just throw a video up for sort of 15-20 minutes talking about whatever training topic I want and get about 1,000 views in a couple of days, it's just, yeah, that's really exciting for me. So I appreciate that so much, and I love that you guys are getting entertained and hopefully getting some good training advice out of it as well. So if you really like my thoughts on training, I have put together a whole course. It's the GPP level 1 course down below, but I won't hassle you too much about that. Let's just get into the video. So how the hell do you program your accessories to get the absolute most out of them for you and your clients? I guess first thing we should do is define like what the hell is an accessory exercise. And look, there's no strict definitions here, but typically this is something that applies to people who are training for strength as their primary goal. And you know, typically when we're doing a strength training program, we pick certain exercises that are going to be our KPIs and our real tests and expressions of strength. But then, you know, typically that's only 3 to 4 exercises, maybe at most, and that doesn't really make up a complete exercise program. And we might also notice that we have weak points that we need to bring up a little bit to progress on any of these compound lifts. So you've got your primary exercises, they're the ones that you brag to your friends about when you set a PR, but then you've got all these other exercises that are really just sort of supplementary to the main goal. Certain people as well, when they're talking about programming for strength, they'll break it down a little bit further. They'll have primaries, secondaries, and tertiaries rather than just primaries and accessories. And what that sort of looks like is, you know, they'll have, let's say, their competition lifts for a power lifter, so squat, pause, bench, and deadlift. And then they might have like what they call secondaries, which are similar to the primaries, but with maybe a constraint added. So, you know, examples of that could be a tempo squat, a spoto press, or a mid-grip bench, or maybe a pause deadlift or something like that. So I wouldn't really consider those exercises to be accessories or tertiaries. They very much are secondaries. So for me, when I'm talking about tertiary exercises, it really does refer to those more bodybuilding centric exercises. Again, the lifts you typically never bragging to your friends about hitting a PR in. It really just is there to supplement the rest of the program. So bicep curls, tricep extensions, lateral raises, a lot of your calf training, maybe your leg extensions, seated hamstring curls, all those sorts of things. Again, the whole point of doing these accessory exercises is they're meant to be deliberately targeted at bringing up either your personal weaknesses or certain areas of the body that won't be maximally developed just by focusing on your primary lifts. But then the issue is a lot of people just don't even get anything out of their accessories because, like I said, they're at the end of the workout, they're frequently skipped, or people just sort of do them half-assed because, again, it's really easy to get G'd up for your primary lifts. They're the ones that you're going to brag to your friends about. They're the ones that give you that real sense of progress. But it can be hard to maintain that level of motivation with the accessory lifts, which aren't your primary goal, whether they go up or down. It's at the end of your session where you start to get a little bit tired. These aren't the ones that you upload to the gram at the end of your workout and send to all your buddies when you hit a big number. So how can we sort of overcome this? And then again, also try to remember that these exercises, even though they're frequently used in the context of a strength training program, they typically have a little bit of a hypertrophy flavor to them. And if you've been paying any attention to the conversations online or a lot of the emerging ideas in the evidence-based hypertrophy space, there's a bit of a battle going on now where, you know, if you're training for hypertrophy, do you go for this more high volume or low volume approach? Because it seems like there's pretty successful people in both camps. So how do you pick the right approach for getting the most hypertrophy out of these accessories in the back end of your workout? And in my opinion, the obvious choice here from a number of different perspectives is just to go all in on the higher intensity, lower volume approach to training your accessories. And it's not for the typical reasons why people promote high intensity training for hypertrophy, you know. So a lot of people in the high intensity or lower volume or the Mike Metzer camp, they're really big believers that lower volume and higher intensity is actually what produces the best results when it comes to hypertrophy. When I sit back and I look at the evidence, It seems to me that there's no clear superior method from a pure physiological standpoint, but when it comes to being practical and just sheer pragmatism, I can't look past a lower volume approach, especially when it comes to training your accessories. I mean, it just makes sense in a world where every single coach is whinging about how terrible people's attention spans are in the TikTok age. Why would we ever take a higher volume, more tedious, or longer approach to getting our accessories done at the end of the workout when you just go 2 sets, close proximity to failure, or honestly, I reckon just for the ease of programming and to keep it fun for your clients, 2 hard sets, take until failure, accessories done. Versus, taking that same approach to whatever exercise you're picking, doing 4 or 5 sub-maximal sets of an accessory. Yeah, you might not have to psych up as much for each set, but again, that's actually fun for people, training hard with close proximity to failure. The higher volume approach just kind of means having to spend an extra 30 minutes at the gym to get your accessories done. So physiologically speaking, people really struggle to split the difference between the higher volume or lower volume approach. 2 hard sets of each accessory, maybe you can push it to 3 if you really feel like you need to. Hell, I'd even go as low as 1 warm-up set, and then 1 set to failure. I mean, that's sure as hell a lot more effective than just going home and skipping them if you can't be stuffed doing your accessories. So yeah, just from a coach's perspective, trying to not get too caught up in what's the actual optimal approach to hypertrophy and trying to factor in client needs and preferences. And I'm sure there's some special flower out there who likes doing some nice chilled out high volume accessories at the end of their workout. But in my experience, all my clients, they want to go in after their primaries and they just want to get the job done as quick as possible so they can go home, play video games and eat protein. Also, speaking specifically to my context, I work in a strength and conditioning context a lot more than just a strength training context. So whenever you're trying to train multiple qualities alongside each other, whenever there's a viable lower volume option, I'm always pretty keen to jump on that because it just leaves more space in the program for other things. The other thing that I'm pretty open to as well when it comes to programming with accessories is I don't really care about the rep range. I more care about the proximity to failure. So just practically speaking, a lot of the exercises that we typically program for accessories, they can get a little bit awkward when you're going, less than 5 or 6 reps. They're typically a bit better suited to maybe an 8 to 12 rep range, maybe even a little bit higher than that. I'm honestly comfortable with just telling them how many sets to do and then telling them the proximity or how close to failure they need to take it. I don't actually give a shit about how many reps they end up doing. I just need to know that I achieve that close enough proximity to failure to stimulate hypertrophy because then job's done. So in summary, if you're sick of your clients skipping all their accessories, give them less sets at a higher intensity. Maybe have a chat to them as well. Just be like, do you have a favorite arm variation? Do you have a favorite hamstring curl variation that you won't skip? Don't worry about the rep ranges, worry about proximity to failure and just stop prescribing them so many sets when you know that they don't have the attention span for it, okay? Maybe when it comes to the primaries, a little bit more psychological investment, but I don't know anyone on planet Earth who's that G'd up about doing their accessories. So keep the prescription tight, keep the intensity high, and that way your clients, they'll stop skipping them and they'll actually start to get something out of those accessory exercises. All right, don't forget, if you want to learn more from me, sign up to GPP Level 1 via the link below. If you want to train like me, you can get a free week of my programming and you can even get some free programs to get you started with plyometric training. I've got a little accessory bundle down there and there's a few other treats as well. So check that out and I'll see you in a couple of days with a whole new video.